So we're going to go now to someone I'm very proud to be sitting next to. I'm going to introduce Jancis Robinson, OBE. She has, for me, the best nose, she's the best read, she's the best respected, and certainly the best dressed person in the business.
Thank you.
She, amongst everything else that she does, Jancis advises Her Majesty the Queen on her cellar. So, from the person who brings smiles to her readers, brings smiles to the faces of the producers whose wines she honours with her words, and also to the faces of all the staff at Izumiyaki on Conduit Street. Please give it up for Jancis Robinson.
Thank you. Very, very kind words, Kevin. Thank you. And thank you, Wines of Turkey, for, well, giving us all the chance to listen to the leader in his field. We haven't met before, but I've been a huge admirer of everything that Pat McGovern's done for the history of wine. So it's a lovely chance to actually get together and for all of us to hear what the man has to say in the flesh. Also, thank you for giving us a unique chance for three of us who are hard at work co-authors on a great big new book about wine grapes, Dr. Jose Vuillamos, who you'll be meeting later, Julia Harding, Master of Wine, and me. It's only the second time in our lives that all three of us have been in the same place, as opposed to emailing each other desperately. So it's very well timed from the point of view of putting our book together, so thank you. Perhaps the purpose of today is to dispel the image that all that Turkey can do with a vine is to wrap little parcels of rice, cooked rice. Because, as we'll discover, I'm sure, next door, there are lots of very, very exciting wines coming out of Turkey now. There are three big wine companies in Turkey. Kyra, which is the sort of descendant of the Tekel that you mentioned, the big monopoly, but it's now a completely separate company. Doluccia and Cavacli Dairy, all three of whom are obviously exhibiting next door. But there is a small rash, I suppose you could call it, of much smaller companies. Some of them really almost sort of boutique companies, just as you mentioned, Kevin, who are bringing the usual attributes of fierce ambition and international savoir-faire to bear to make increasingly interesting wines. But I think what's particularly heartening about the Turkish wine scene is how ambitious the big companies are about quality as well. I mean, obviously, they're going to have big volume lines which aren't going to win international competitions. But all three of them are very keen to give the small, ambitious new producers a real run for their money, and are all investing heavily in dramatic upgrades of quality, new vineyards, new wineries, new techniques. So it does seem to me as though everything in Turkey, Turkish wine, is going in the right direction. So the Turkish wine business is outward looking. It's been very aware of the need for consultants. Daniel Donnell's here somewhere. He's been consulting for, where are you? Been consulting for Kyra for some time, American. And Cavacli Dairy recruited Stéphane de Renoncourt from Bordeaux to advise them on a very interesting new project they have way up in the mountains inland from Izmir, with really growing grapes on a kind of standard Bordeaux model of vineyards surrounding winemaking facilities. So it's certainly not been a hermetically sealed little wine culture. It's very, very open to what's going on elsewhere. When I went in May 2009, tasted a reasonably wide and representative selection of the wines then being made. There were certainly enough exciting wines to be enthusiastic about. and certainly wines are exported to the EU now. But even if there's no wine law at the moment, and it's a very small wine industry to regulate anyway, there is huge ambition to export. And I think we're very honoured, Your Excellency, that you're here today, which is a great sign of confidence in Turkish wine and its ambitions to be known abroad. The big question in Turkish wine, for those of us who are not Turkish and observing it, is the question of international varieties versus indigenous varieties. Because as we will be hearing after the coffee break, Turkey does have some really interesting and very distinctive grape varieties. And conveniently, as Julia pointed out last night, not so many of them that they're difficult to get a handle on. There really is a sort of relatively small nucleus of seriously interesting Turkish grape varieties, and you have a very good guide to them in your catalogues. Although I would suggest a pronunciation guide the next time. And of course, those are the varieties that are of most interest to foreigners, to non-Turks. But the Turkish market is still fascinated by oak Chardonnay and Cabernet Sauvignon and all the rest. And I must say, I mean, I have had some very nice examples of international varieties in Turkey, but obviously when you're exporting, however delicious the Sevillon Sauvignon Blanc, for instance, Sevillon Sauvignon Blanc, it is having to earn its place alongside Sauvignons, all those Sauvignons from New Zealand, Chile, France, whatever. So I would say on export markets, do emphasize the indigenous grape varieties made to appeal to non-Turkish palates. I won't go into grape varieties because we are running behind time, but just to say I did lose my heart, particularly with what I tasted in 2009. I did particularly like the whites of Emir, and not just because it's so easy to pronounce, and particularly the reds made, the sort of very fruity but characterful reds made by the variety that you called Eye of the Ox, but I think we were saying should be just renamed Bullseye and would be much easier for us all to pronounce and remember. But I'm looking forward to tasting wines from many other grape varieties next door. This program on Tuesday made the interesting point that, and I don't know if it relates to what you're going to tell us later on, that there are more different plant species around Istanbul than there are in the whole of the UK. And the argument being that it was where two cultures met. Don't know. So what I think we all want here is to see some of your best wines well showcased. Then, as my understanding is that although prices aren't nearly as high as they used to be, and I think efforts are being made to make prices as appetizing as possible for potential British importers, obviously Turkey's not interested in exporting bargain sort of mass market wines. These are wines with a story to tell. I could see them very easily in independent wine stores, and I could certainly see them on restaurant wine lists. I think they could be very useful emissaries for modern Turkey and all that's going on there, and of course for the interesting touristic possibilities in Turkey. For the British tourist, I'm afraid alcohol is inextricably linked to tourism. And so to be able to welcome people with, or beckon people through a good glass of Turkish wine was surely valuable. I'm often asked by generic bodies, how can we promote our wines? What are our USPs? And all of them focus on their history, because everyone's got a history. And I usually try and discourage people from too much playing on history as a selling point, because most nations' history, wine history, is not especially distinctive or relevant. But I do think that in this one case, for the reasons just outlined, I do think Turkey is quite justified in playing the history card in promoting its wines. And I look forward very much to seeing more Turkish wine in this country and generally abroad. And I suppose I would just end by saying that perhaps so far Turkey's most significant wine export to the UK is Isa Bal, the sommelier at the Fat Duck, who you've got a one-man ambassador there. So perhaps you can build on that. And I wish you the very best of luck. Thank you very much.